Let's talk for a few because James Comey's in the news. He's running around talking about the FBI and all of the things they did and what he wants them to do. Anyway, that's in the news. So let's have another talk, because we haven't had this in a while, about what the communist believes about power, what Democrats believe about power. So first, let's understand they believe in using it. You will never be able to understand what these people want, why they do what they do, until you understand they don't share your morality at all. You are probably a person who believes in abstaining from using all the power you have. I'm hungry right now. I actually forgot to eat this morning. I ran around, didn't have time. If I walk out to use the restroom at this moment and there's a little old lady walking up the hall with a pizza, I could of course take it from her. I'm hungry, I want it, it could be mine, but I don't think that would be the right thing to do. So I don't do it. The communist thinks that way of thinking is absurd. You want it, you have the power to take it, you go take it. The communist believes in using power. That's one. Two, remember that we all have goals in life. Everybody. And a very common way to achieve your goals, in fact, the most common way, probably the norm, is you pick the end goal and then you figure out all the steps you need to get to that end goal. If I want to play professional football one day, I don't like my chances, but let's say I want to play professional football one day. Well, I got to hit the gym. I got to start getting faster. I got to start watching film. I have a lot of work to do to get from A to B, B being the NFL. Well, the communist has a goal for you as well. The communist, he wants to destroy. He wants to have his revolution. And guess what? You are in the way. This is not unique to America's communists. It's not unique to our current era. They've always been this way since the first Soviet revolution where communists took over. They look around at their own people and they figure out who are the most likely impediments to the revolution they are fighting. And then they move from that step. Once they've identified you, that's you, then they figure out, well, how do we get them? How do we stop them? In whatever way we can. Maybe we'll kill them. They do that a lot. Maybe we'll just hurt them. Maybe we'll throw them in prison. Maybe we'll just frighten them. But whatever we have to do, we have a goal, remember. We want to fight our revolution. We want to destroy everything. These patriotic citizens are in the way. How do we get them out of the way? And that brings me to the government. And this is why, in fact, it's still law in America. This is why it's a law. You're not allowed to have communists in our government. Of course, we have communists throughout our government, but why would you want that? Why would you even feel the need to pass a law like that? Because if you get communists in your government at any level, doesn't matter what level it is, it could be your tiny town, it could be the White House. If you get communists in government, they will not work on behalf of the country. They think that's laughably absurd. They don't think about the country. They're trying to burn down the country. If you get them in any position of power, whether in the FBI, the government, whatever, they will use that position to crush their political opposition. And it doesn't matter what the position is. If you make one a librarian in your local public library, that librarian will view her main role as smashing the opposition. President does the exact same thing. I warned you. This is from 2021. I warned you about these people back then. The people running your country, there is no difference whatsoever between them and any other totalitarian who ever lived. They're only missing the opportunity to do those things. Rest assured, if these people had the ability right now to take you and throw you in jail for not doing and saying and thinking what you were told, they would do it without hesitation. They would not lose 1 minute of sleep while they did it. The enemy is not China. It's not Islamic terrorists somewhere. It's not Russia. It's not North Korea. The enemy is you. That's how these people think. And now, courtesy of Tulsi Gabbard, credit to her, we have declassified documents that show the Biden administration took people who opposed COVID vaccine mandates. You know, when the government tried to force you to inject yourself with something, the government looked at all those people. They looked at you and they said, well, here's a group of people we need to smash. How dare they attempt to be free, to stand up against our authority? And like all communists do, they figured out a way to use government power to do it. You see, they were busy labeling you as domestic violent extremists. Now, why do they do such things? A good example, Steve Friend of the show, actually. Former FBI Special Agent Steve Friend has told us this. He's told us this before on the show. He was pulled, as an FBI agent, he was pulled off of FBI child pornography cases where they're hunting down these monsters, and they sent him into parking lots of school board meetings. What's he doing in the parking lot? Well, if you're a mother, father, angry that your child's being taught how to be gay in kindergarten, you're getting loud about it at the school board, the federal government, they want you to shut up. So they sent the FBI to jot down your license plate and label you a potential domestic terrorist. What does this do? What does it do when you say someone's a potential domestic violent extremist? Well, let me explain. They open a file on you. Nowadays, I'm sure it's all digitized, but they open a file on you. I have no doubt I have one sitting somewhere. And that Jesse Kelly file, you see, once they start a file on you, you become somebody they want to keep their eye on. You become somebody they're after. You are officially in the government's crosshairs, and they will begin putting things in your file. They will spy on you. They will violate your civil rights. They may even frame you for crimes. But once that file has been opened, they're going to start filling that file up, creating a dossier as a domestic terrorist they can use government power to smash. That's why they take steps like labeling you a domestic violent extremist. That's why they do that. We have talked about this over and over and over again, and I warned you about this during the Biden years as I saw their rhetoric and how much it repeated itself and how much they would go into it over and over and over again. Do you remember all this?
That attack, that siege, was criminal behavior, plain and simple, and it's behavior that we, the FBI, view as domestic terrorism.
In the FBI's view, the top domestic violent extremist threat comes from racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically those who advocated for the superiority of the white race.
Domestic violent extremism is the most acute threat, terrorism-related threat that we are seeing to our homeland. And as President Biden so powerfully put it, words do matter. Leadership matters.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. No matter what the white supremacists and the extremists say.
Why? Why did they decide on that messaging and they trotted it out over and over and over and over and over again? They were baking it into the government cake, if you will, the ability to go after their political opponents with government power. That's always been their goal. You think people who abuse government power, if I told you right now, a Republican, if I told you Donald Trump was going to go arrest Nancy Pelosi, not for crimes, but just because she's a Democrat, so he's going to arrest her, you wouldn't like that. I hope you wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like that. For a communist, they think that's that way of thinking, not liking that, they think that's ridiculous. Of course, that's how you use government power. And that's what we need to discuss in regards to the FBI, you see. Oh, I know, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino are on top now. I got all that. And I'm glad they are. But remember, there are 35,000 employees at the largest secret state police agency on the planet. James Comey was the FBI director. Would you like to know what kind of mentality flows through the veins at the Federal Bureau of Investigation? Listen to James Comey talk to Jen Psaki about it.
Let's say you work in the FBI. You know that one of the two political parties is, let me put it nicely, white supremacist adjacent at a minimum. And so why would you want to throw your career on that side of the line and be summoned to Capitol Hill to be asked, why are you pursuing these innocent groups? And so we have a cultural impediment to working it effectively that should get more attention than it does.
They can't hide who they are. They look at power, all power, government power especially, as something to be used against their political opponents. Mao did the same thing. Stalin did the same thing. All those Stalin purges where he was murdering people, show trials all across the country. He publicly justified himself all the time. He was always on the hunt for those domestic saboteurs, spies, infiltrators, domestic violent extremists. That's why they've fallen in so much love with this whole white supremacy line. They use it all the time.
According to the intelligence community, terrorism from white supremacy is the most lethal threat to the homeland today. Not ISIS, not Al-Qaeda, white supremacists.
In the FBI's view, the top domestic violent extremist threat comes from racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically those who advocated for the superiority of the white race.
A huge chunk of those domestic terrorism investigations involve racially motivated, violent extremist motivated terrorist attacks. And the majority of those, of the racially motivated, violent extremist attacks, are fueled by some kind of white supremacy.
Didn't you find that odd? Why? What? You've probably never met a white supremacist in your life. I don't think I have. You've, I'm sure, seen a couple guys online, but you've never met one. It's not a pervasive problem. Why would the top law enforcement officers in the country, including the Attorney General, take that line? That line, you see, it married perfectly with the Democrat line forever that all Republicans are white supremacists, you're a white supremacist. Lo and behold, the FBI is after white supremacists, and look at that. You have your justification for using the Federal Bureau of Investigation to raid Mar-a-Lago, to arrest pro-lifers, to infiltrate the Catholic Church. This is not a mentality of the past. This is a mentality of the now. I know we have new leadership, but these people are all throughout our government, and we have to be aware of it. And boy, the things they're going to do if they take power again, James Comey basically said it.
I know Republicans these days aren't big in thinking about principle or precedent. They're going to be deeply sorry that that disappears, because someday there will be a Democratic president and there'll be investigations of Republican office holders. If I'm them, I sure would want these career people in place, making sure that it's done in the right way. Look, I've long thought that you could shrink the size of some of the Department of Justice headquarters units, but this is like burning down the house and then standing in front of the pile of ashes and saying, yeah, we really did need to retile the guest bath, right? This is destroying the place at a cost that's going to take years and years to rebuild.
There's going to be investigations into Republican officials if these people take power again. Of course, he knows they just did that. Just got done doing that. But remember, James Comey, you don't need to think of him like a human being. He's a communist. He believes in using that power against his political opponents. All communists do. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.